Hey love, welcome back to my channel. I'm Shay J. Today I want to share my backstory on how I got into spirituality after being religious all my life. I grew up Catholic, and once I became an adult, I'm rediscovering who I am, which has been an eye-opening experience for me, and I'm sure your experience has been crazy too if you're watching this video. So let's connect. And yeah, this is not going to be a reading, and it's not going to be too long. I'm just going to briefly tell y'all about who I am. So if you're here for the first time, welcome. And if you watched me before, welcome back. This is a sacred space for truth and clarity. We discuss astrology, tarot, and other astroteric subjects, and we honor the divine feminine goddess energy. I will never reach out to you for a personal reading, but you can buy one with me on my website, okay? And thank you for tuning in. And with that being said, let's get into the video. So in 2017, I had my first spiritual awakening, and it was a transformative experience that profoundly changed my perception on life itself, my even the whole world as I know it. My longing for God and my longing to connect with spirit was, activated when I heard the call, the inner calling that people talk about. I grew up in a religious background, and I was raised to know about God and go to church. I even went to Sunday school, and I learned about the apostles and everything like that. And I stayed in Catholic school till second to eighth grade. And then I eventually went off on my own. In 2019, I started using divination and learning about my gifts. But of course, then I was a closet witch, so I was hiding who I was and the things that I was getting involved in. And I was in a closet about my lifestyle. And apart from all of that, finding out about my karmic ex and all the spell work, which is, the spiritual warfare. And that's basically how I got into tarot. But initially, I was afraid to use tarot because I didn't know what the cards was going to tell me. And at that point, I was not feeling equipped and prepared to hear what spirit wanted to let me know. And I dibbled and dabbled with cartomancy for a little while. I basically had some like regular cards around the house, and I just picked up tarot, and I did that. And then 2020, I started my own spiritual practice, and I guess by then I felt ready to kind of like step into these new abilities that I was learning about myself. Um, the challenges that I faced were, of course, talking to my family about it and letting them know. But I didn't do that right off the back. And I'm still struggling with explaining what I do to them because they don't believe in what I do, which is pretty common for us light workers. But yeah, things were going on in my life. There was crisis and loss and all types of things that were happening from 2020 that opened my intuition. And I mean, you always know you have intuition. You got that inner voice, that gut feeling. That's that gut feeling they talk about all through your life. And most of the times we ignore it. Okay, let's just be real. But when you become aware, you start to pay attention to those things. So when you're going through life and different challenges, and these things will push you towards going more inward and learning more about yourself to kind of figure out how you can correct what's going on. So yeah. And then when that started, I began to have heightened awareness, and that was like becoming more aware of the present moment and the interconnections to all things. Also, there was also a shift in priorities, which I noticed about myself, as far as like material possessions and society norms, and they started to lose importance. And if you're connecting with me, you probably experienced this as well. Also, when you go through your first spiritual awakening, your intuition amplifies, and you start to feel more connected to your inner voice and guidance, but that takes practice. Okay, and also another thing that I've learned, I noticed about myself from 2020 on, is that I desired to have solitude. And it's like, once you start to learn about things and realize things about your family, and um, how things is the matrix and everything like that, you you crave more alone time to reflect and process your awakening and process everything that's happening. And I remember I needed a lot of quiet time because I've always been extroverted. I feel like I've always had a lot of friends and always wanted to go out and hang out with people. But then I had my son, and then like COVID started, and everybody just started staying indoors. This is when everything started hitting me. So yeah, and then the synchronicities, like you notice meaningful coincidences, or you feel guided by some unseen forces. So this is like the beginning of the awakening process. So in 2017, I awoke. I got the call and I answered the call. You hear that? In 2019, I started using tarot, and then 2020, I started my spiritual business. Some of my spiritual gifts that like I've noticed I have, like opposed and even healing, but channeling has been something that's been growing throughout the years that I've been getting, and prophecy, um being able to predict. But these go into your clairs, and if you know about the clairs, go and read about them: clear audience, clear cognance, stuff like that. And learning how to trust and refine your gifts rather than hiding them is like the biggest challenge that any light worker could have right now. Also, people, as I began to post my videos and content, people began asking me for guidance. So that kind of gave me, like the go ahead to continue going. And well, you'll notice as you're going through your journey, your abilities will start showing up effortlessly as you continue to go forward and stuff like that. Now, the lessons that I had to learn that were repeating for me was learning boundaries, releasing people that drain me, over giving, people pleasing tendencies, and also like understanding my own worth. And those were the things that I continuously struggled with during this time. Um, as you go through your journey, just like me and so many of us, we start to discover our calling, our mission, And I feel like there was a desire to teach, guide, and create spiritual tools. There was also a feeling of being fulfilled when helping others awaken. And then people again asking me for advice. So that just gave me the insight to continue to keep going. A lot of symbols that I was noticing throughout like the beginning are like animal symbols, big on like the lion, the raven, like the crow, stuff like that. Numbers: 111, 222, 555, and mythology excuse me, mythology. I'm heavy into that, and you might be as well. To learn more about you know spirituality, you go into mythology. Okay, so basically, to break down my journey was like, the matrix, understanding the matrix, having the awakening, then you go through some sort of trials and tests. You also have like spiritual training. There's a lot of spiritual training. There's a lot of lessons that need to be learned. Also, claiming your spiritual gifts is another thing. Everyone that's on this journey has different purpose, a different mission. So that's something that you need to be very clear on what you're good at. And let's see what else. Yeah, and sharing wisdom with others. So as me like myself, as you go forward in your journey, you will begin to start teaching other people what you've learned and what you've picked up over time. I've been doing tarot for 5 years, and I still feel like I'm learning, learning, constantly learning. I mean, I'm not a novice, but I'm not an expert either. So, spirituality is all about constantly learning. And that's what you do, you learn constantly throughout life. And this is something that has happened to me. And I haven't really been talking about my journey that much, but I feel like now is time that I do. So yeah, so the first thing was for me to recognize the pain that awakened me. There was a lot of things going on in my life in 2019 that could have broke me, and also the gifts that I did discover that I had in the process of all of that happening, which helped me move forward. The lessons that I had to learn the hard way, which is, the overgiving, the people pleasing tendencies, different things like that, not understanding my worth, and then how I'm meant to help others now moving forward. So, yeah, this is basically my story in a nutshell. There's a lot of traumatic things that have happened to me, things that I'll probably talk about that people would never believe is true. They wouldn't even be able to imagine all the hardships that I've been through. But I'm here today, and I'm proud of myself, and I'm going to keep moving forward, and hopefully the divine will allow me to keep using my gifts to help others and awaken others in the process. So yeah, so this is my spiritual story about my journey, how I became who I am today. And I'm just such a different person. I'm a happier person. I am just like a no nonsense type of person now. I'm a better version of myself, and that's basically what spirituality is all about. It's not demonic, it's not evil, it doesn't make you do bad things to people. It actually helps you to improve yourself. So this is my story. I'm going to have other videos later on talking about other things that I've gone through, but this is just like the rough rundown of like basically how I started, how it all began, and how I'm here where I am today. So I hope you got something out of this story, and I'll see you on the next video.